and dad has dementia and needs to move into assisted living. They sell the house. Mom moves into the rental house. She's able to walk over and visit dad every day, and that tends to work out very well. Also, kids or grandkids that want to be involved with their loved ones. If they live close by, they can visit. And also people in the community. There are many things that go on, from music to lectures to art. It's not just bingo and popcorn and movies. There's a lot of cultural things that can happen. So having people live next door to the assisted living makes that a lot easier for that to happen. So we have this vision to rezone this. This is the former parking lot and ball fields of the school, which was the second use of the property. This is all awash, and so we have a vision to kind of take this area of the property and develop out these rental homes. And what I like about these rental homes, these are not two-story apartments where a neighbor lives adjacent to you or on top of you like most apartment complexes. These are casitas. They are independent, 4 walls around your building, and 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. So the density is not nearly as great as some of these big apartment projects. I'm envisioning, I want it to be an intergenerational campus because I want people of all ages able to live there and help and connect it with the assisted living. The other thought is, if you are retired and you don't need help, but you decide to sell your house and rent, which many people do just because it's much easier, there are services that the assisted living could provide. I have doctors that come to the assisted living. I have housekeepers that come to the assisted living, and we cook there. We make the best meatloaf in town, I guarantee you. So if you live in these apartments, you'd be able to connect and get meals delivered, get housekeeping handled, or maybe even get one of the doctors that does house calls to come over here and do house calls. So there's a lot of, the word is like synergy in a community like this, in an intergenerational community. So that's what we're hoping to be able to develop. And if you look here, I'm not here asking you for a nebulous kind of zoning. This is specifically what we want to do. These guys have developed around town. I've met with them and talked with them. And if we get the zoning, they're able to build. These are beautiful 1-story casitas. They're colorful. They have granite counters. They have appliances in the units. This is not some like low budget rental community. This will be pretty upscale for Tucson, and given the low density, the rental rates will be strong. And it's a great location for Tucson. Now that downtown has continued to grow, you know, this is 5 minutes from the university, Pima College, which you all know why you live out here. It's a great area. It's just getting better and better. So, is there more I was supposed to say? So thank you very much, and I'll be around and happy to answer any questions.
You know, you said nothing about what is going to benefit us. It was all about what is going to benefit you.
So we're not, sir, we're not done with the presentation. If you could, I would like to go ahead and, okay. I'm going to finish the presentation, and then we're happy to answer questions, concerns. I will ask that everybody be respectful of one another and be respectful of us as well. We intend to do the same of you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the zoning and planning. Some of you are familiar with zoning and planning. Some of you are not. So I'm going to apologize right now for insulting anybody's intelligence as I explain the process. And we're also happy to answer questions, obviously, afterwards. So there's 2 levels of planning and zoning in every jurisdiction in the state of Arizona. There is the policy level, which is the general plan. In the city of Tucson, it's called Plan Tucson. And within Plan Tucson, there are some areas that have sub-regional policies. This area has the Tucson Mountain sub-regional policies. Those are policy level, they're not regulatory, but anytime you ask for a discretionary approval, like a rezoning, you have to work with city staff and make sure that you're in what's called substantial conformance with those policies. And then there's zoning, which is the regulatory. So what I'm going to walk you through right now is what the current planning designation is for the project, the current zoning, what it is that we have developed as far as a site plan, which is actually more specific than you would normally do at a policy level, but it helps to visualize and it gives us all something to discuss as well. And then talk to you about the plan amendment process. So this is the current policy level document. I just pulled the map out. It's about a 60-page document. Some of you I know are very familiar with it. It has a lot of policies related to wildlife. I only pulled out the map because we're only changing the designation in the map. We're not changing any of the policies. This is the 24 acres right here. This right here that says D, that's already medium intensity urban, which is the designation, is the current part of the property under construction. The 24 acres, 24 acres, is designated LIU, low intensity urban 1.2, which is 1.2 residents per acre. The Painted Hills Wash is on the northern portion of the property. It is designated resource conservation. What you'll see in the policy document talks about this. There are wildlife corridors we need to respect, which we are doing in our proposal. There's also, as you get closer to Silver Bell, it's intended to be a higher density developments and then going over into lower density as you go to the west. Those are all, there's a lot of other policies related to design and again, we're not changing any of the policies. There are two policies that are very specific to this area. One of them is making sure that we maintain height at no higher than 24 feet. We are not going any higher than 24 feet in this proposal. All of the homes will be 18 feet. And that's reflective in some of the product that you're seeing, the projects that have been developed over here. So we're maintaining that. There's also a policy that the colors need to be of natural and blend in. You're seeing some more vibrant colors over here. Those are projects that don't have that policy tied to it. Again, we're not requesting any modifications to that policy. This is the zoning map. So we just moved from the policy level to the regulatory. The Via Elegante Assisted Living is the C1 property right here. The SR Suburban Ranch is what the current zoning is on the property. That's been the zoning on the property for as long as I was able to research back. It's a typical kind of holding zone for property. I went back about 30 years. I didn't go back any further. It does not appear that it doesn't appear that it's been rezoned. It was SR in the county and came over as SR. A lot of these other areas where you see other colors were actually rezoned at some point in the city, went through a similar process to rezone. So this is the SR piece right here, and you can see everything that's around. This is the current, so this is the site plan where we're giving a lot more detail than we normally do in a plan amendment process. So this is the Via Elegante Assisted Living. This is the entire 24 acres. 10 acres of the 24 are washes that need to be, that we are respecting the policies that are available, and we are going to be leaving it 14.
Isn't it?
So
That's a requirement, isn't it?
this is the, if you can hold questions, please, I appreciate it. This is the Painted Hills Wash that's up here. There is a tributary that kind of comes through here that will maintain as open space, and then there's another piece right down here. What we've done in designing the project is we've kept the roadway infrastructure internal to the project. The access point is entirely on Cerrada de Beto, which shares the access point with the assisted living. You will see on this plan there are two access points that are emergency, sorry, that was the wash, right here and right here. Those are emergency access only. We have worked with the city, and for any of you who've been, and I can find some examples, they are physical gates that cannot be opened but for the police department, the ambulances, and the fire department. They are specifically coded, and they have, I call it a garage door opener, but they don't like it when I call it that. in their vehicles that only allows them to open them. We did that for safety purposes only. The access is Cerrada de Beto out to Silverbell. The white units on here are duplexes. So when we say 150 units, that counts the duplexes too. So right now we're showing it as 150 units. There are buffers along here that are larger because of the wash. Down in this area and along here where there are homes, we have a proposed 10-foot landscape buffer on our property, and then there'll be a wall and then another 10 feet before there's a structure. And again, the structures are all 18 feet high, nothing higher than the 18 feet. There's some amenities kind of towards the middle, and as Andy indicated, kind of the ability to share some amenities and some services with the actual Via Elegante assisted living. So the reason I showed you that plan is because that's usually what neighbors want to see. This is actually the plan amendment request, which is less than satisfactory when I put this map and only this map up, because you don't know what it is that's being proposed behind the scenes, right? So in order to know what plan amendment we needed, we showed staff the intended development, and we worked with them on what would need to be requested to be compliant with zoning and with the plan. So the modification, everything that's hatch marked in the diagonal, that is currently LIU 1.2. That is what we're requesting to change to MIU, which is medium intensity urban. That will allow us, after the plan amendment process, if it's successful, that will allow us to request the rezoning to R2. You cannot run those concurrently. They are one right after the other, and I'll explain the process in just a minute. The resource conservation area that's at the top, is remaining. We are not modifying that resource conservation, and we're actually preserving more than just that swath, because we're preserving the whole Painted Hills Wash, which is larger than just that area. So the plan amendment process, as I said before, this is the very first step in the process. No application has been filed. This is the neighborhood meeting. This is where we talk to the neighbors, get some feedback. We know that some of you are not happy with this, and we do want to hear from you. So in a respectful manner, we would like to hear from you. We do want to work with the neighbors, particularly the closest neighbors, on putting together something that may work. You heard the vision from Andy as well on how this can work together. It is 24 acres that he owns. It does have current zoning. It's going to get developed at some point, and so we really do want to work with the folks in the neighborhood. After the neighborhood meeting, we put together an application, and we actually submit it. I didn't mention this before, but Robin is here taking notes as you have comments and questions. Those will be part of the application as well. So we'll put in, hang on a second. We'll go ahead and put in the application. Staff reviews it. And then there's two public processes, public meetings, public hearings. The Planning Commission on a plan amendment
Aren't you skipping the study session?
holds, the study session for the plan amendment.
I was told there was a study session
There
before.
may be. I was focused on the hearing because that's the spot, but you're right. There is, so I just didn't put it on the slide.
Okay.
There is the Planning Commission is the recommending body. They hold the spot where everybody engages is the public hearing. Before the public hearing,
But
they will
residents
have.
can go to the study session too.
You will get notice. I'm not done.
Sorry, it's just not on your slide.
It's all right. You will get notice of the study session. It's an opportunity for the Planning Commission members to mainly interact with the applicant. It can be sometimes frustrating for neighbors because it's not the public hearing part of the process, but you absolutely can come and hear and you will get notice. And then the next is the public hearing, which actually has an opportunity for the public to speak. The planning commission makes a recommendation, and then the mayor and council ultimately are making the decision. For those of you who received notice of this meeting, you will also receive the city, we got those labels from the city, so you will receive notification of those hearings. If you did not get notice and you want notice, I am going to ask you to put an asterisk by your name. Please make sure it's legible. Put an asterisk by your name, and we will give those to the city. We are not the ones who send out the notice, it's the city. So if they can't read your writing, they're not going to send it out. So we will do our best on our end to make sure that that information gets to the city staff. But I know some of you may have heard through other means, the notification area is 300 feet from the rezoning parcel and neighborhood associations within a mile. So if you fall in that category and you did not get notice, let us know and we will try to fix that with the city as well. Okay, ready, set, go. Yes.
So my first question is this. You're talking about 150 residents in addition to the assisted living.
Yeah. I'll repeat the question, everyone. Go
The
ahead.
access is one small two-lane road.
Yes.
Planners generally assume 5 to 10 vehicles per. What plans will the developer have? Whether it's approved or not.
Okay.
To change that road. If these plans were approved.
Sure. So the question is, in addition to the assisted living, that's 150 homes, so what are the plans for improvements to Cerrada de Beto? As part of this process, we have a traffic engineer who's going to run those numbers. As I think Judith is, I think you know, the traffic numbers that are, there are peak times in the morning and the evening. It's 6 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening. I think I have those right. And those are the times that are focused on for purposes of traffic improvements, because those are the areas with the highest amount of traffic. We will know prior to our application what kind of traffic that cues. We have to turn that into the city, and they will work with us on what improvements. We're not there yet. We're, like I said, very early in the process, and so I don't have the answer to your question as to what the improvements are going to be, but I do know what the process is to get there, and we're in the process of getting there.
Okay, you'll agree that that road is not adequate right now for 150 households plus 150.
What I will agree is that a traffic engineer who is smarter than me on that issue needs to actually look at it, and I can't stand here.
I'm Judith Meyer on the board of Tucson Mountain Association.
You know those emergency exits change.
Okay, I'm going to ask that everybody raise their hand, and I'm going to call people in the order that so there are a couple people, and I'm going to pick them in the order, and then you have to help me remember. I saw your hand, hang on just a second, and I saw your hand. So hang on, she's going to go first, and then you, okay?
On the duplex,
Yes,
you said those are counted
each individually.
Okay, and what kind of screening process is planned for the
What kind of screening process is planned for who our renters are going to be?
Good question. We'll have we're planning on having the same management company that manages the Avila product. And I don't know exactly what their screening process will be, but I can tell you the rents are going to be from like 1,000 to 1,500 per month is what we're projecting, depending on the size. So obviously they'll have to be able to qualify to move in. This is post-March.
Yes.
That road that's going to be so well traveled is designated as open space on the side of the walk. When you change the zoning after you bought it, knowing that it was low density, when you set a precedent to change the zoning, you then can get your hands on our open space. So your vision is not our vision.
Can you repeat that for the rest of us?
You're talking about this open space right here, right? That's designated, so that, let me try repeating it. If I mess it up, you can tell me I've messed it up. This open space is really the plan that everybody wants to maintain. And the concern is that when you go in and you request a rezoning and a plan amendment, when you bought the property with its current zoning, you're actually changing the vision in the area. Did I get it? Yeah. Sort of? Okay. So yes, at the same time, all these processes, the plan amendments and the rezonings, they are available, and, sorry, you're blinding. They are available, and one of the things I want to point out is in the plan, this actually is the Painted Hills Wash, and it very much ties into that open space up to the north. And part of the commitment through this process, that's privately owned. That whole Painted Hills Wash up to the edge by the developer. So part of what we'd be doing is really committing that to continue to be natural open space as opposed to the SR zoning. There are a lot of other regulatory things that come into play that make it very difficult, if not impossible, to develop in that area for sure. But it is an added commitment to move forward. I'm going to take a few other people before we come back and do more.
Hi.
Go ahead.
So if I'm getting this right, if it goes to a different zoning, there's up to 15 units per acre. Currently at the zoning right now, it's at 1.2 per acre. So if you can explain it.
So the density is the density that we're talking about for this is 6.27 residences per acre. So it is an increase from 1.2. And remember, the 1.2 is the plan. But yes, it's up to 6.27. And the reason is because you divide it by the gross acreage, which is the 24 acres.
But it's true, there are only 10.1 buildable acres because of the washing.
There's 10.1 buildable acres. So that's the difference between net and gross, and the way that you figure, because the 1.2 is also gross. So if we're going to compare 1.2 to 6.27, you're comparing apples to apples. If you start comparing it to net, then you got to back out the 1.2 also.
I was thinking more of the 150 units. The city, when they did their initial eval, said it is 15 units per acre on their paperwork. We have a copy of that.
Yes.
Because it's only 10.1 buildable acres.
Right.
The rest is illegal,
Right.
off limits.
And staff misunderstood what we were saying was net and buildable because of the way that our engineer calculated it over on the right-hand side. When it says 24 and then it says 10, staff misinterpreted the 10 to be what should have been the 24. They did the calculation incorrectly. You're right, that was the first set of comments that came out. There's a second set of comments where that was corrected. Okay, everyone who wants to ask, raise your hand, and I'm going to pick 3, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to grab some people in the back. One gentleman with the glasses on. You're 2, and you're 3. And that's all I can remember at one time, so then we'll do this again. Go ahead.
So you have a plan with the existing zoning in mind?
A plan with the existing zoning in mind. Andy, do you want to talk about that, or do you
I
want to?
really haven't worked on that, but if that's what I'm left with, I'll figure out what I can do with the current SR zoning.
Gentleman in the back. Go ahead.
Well, that ties in what you said. How much more money are you planning on making by the house? I believe you are earnest when you say you want to help people, son, and love everybody, but the bottom line here is you're going for money at our expense. The other comment I want to make too is that those emergency roads open. There's one on Speedway that was an emergency exit for a housing development, a gated community. It is now open. They do not stay closed. And then we're going to have traffic on 53.
You talked about respect.
Hang on. I've got
anybody's property value. Is
Okay.
there anybody in this room whose property value is going to increase by this project going in?
No.
So,
But to get back to the first question, I mean, Andy, you've got to be expecting to make a significant return on packing in 150 houses versus one house every 3.3 acres.
So, I don't know that you'll respect my answer back.
You can give it a shot.
Honestly, it's not about that. It's about jobs that are created, and it's about the caregivers that work, it's about enhancing the lives of the residents that are there. And I'm not looking at this and saying, I want to make X dollars. And I know you probably don't believe me, but I'm really looking at this as like a good synergistic opportunity. And I want it to be profitable. I want it to be worth more than what it costs for your build.
But they haven't even moved in yet, and we're supposed to be concerned about their well-being, about your well-being?
That's my honest answer to you.
okay, we have some more people who have questions that you were free.
Okay, what I was concerned about is the emergency exits or entrances, and how are you going to assure us that those are not going to become public and open? Because if they do, those streets in that neighborhood are very narrow. There are no sidewalks, there are no street lights. It becomes dangerous for the people who live in that neighborhood, especially during morning and evening when there's school buses and children on those streets. Because there are no places for them to walk except in the street. The vegetation comes right into the street, and there are no sidewalks. And if you're going to have traffic going in and out of there, you're going to injure somebody. Somebody's going to get killed. And that's just not feasible. It's not beneficial for the neighborhood either. Another thing is, what about the noise that's going to come from the community, from your proposed community with garbage trucks and deliveries and things like that? You know, we're right behind your wall there, we're right on the other side, and I don't think 10 feet and bushes is enough. I mean, 10 feet is not very much. My husband's 6 feet tall. The length of him and me, that's all that's going to be between our homes. That's nothing.
Very good.
There are some things that can be put in place to make sure that those maintain as emergency. I don't know what happened on the other projects, so I can't speak to that. But there are projects that I've worked on I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. And the ones that we've made those commitments, we put some of these in place to make sure it continues. So the first is it becomes a zoning condition. And that means it's enforceable by the City of Tucson zoning. And the only way to get that zoning condition changed is to go through another public process. So the only way we'd be able to do it, unlike sometimes those commitments are made when there isn't a zoning process, and so you don't have the opportunity to put a rezoning condition. The other thing we've done is, to the extent there's neighborhood associations next door to us, whatever commitments we made, we can enter into agreements with the neighborhood associations so that those are privately enforced. So you have two enforcement mechanisms. One is, which some of you may have had experiences and have concerns about that. You also have a private right of enforcement. We will also be going through the development, and we can work on what that gate looks like and give you whatever assurances you need that the only people with the clickers are the emergency folks.
So,
as to the buffers, for those of you who live near the right adjacent to, we want to work with you. So this is the first neighborhood meeting. We're having this discussion. The vision is a rental neighborhood that's high quality. There are others in the area that you can, in the region, that you can go see if you want to see them. And we want to work with you on what that looks like.
What are you going to do about the evaluation of our property?
Okay, so this is going to be an unsatisfactory answer to most of you, okay? And I can't do anything about this. But the data out there indicates that when your adjacent property owner actually invests in the property and puts together a quality development, and that includes making sure that the edge is handled correctly, that property values go up. They do not go down. Now, having said that, like
That's the riot.
let me have people who have not spoken raise their hand, and I'm going to get 3 more. I can't hear you. I'm aware. I'm trying to make sure I get the people in the back because I can't see the people in the back. So 1, 2, and 3. And hang on. I know. Sorry. I know both of you do too. You had your hand up. Do you?
Oh, I was about the noise.
Okay.
That's my
All right.
question.
Okay. We'll get there in just a minute. 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead.
So my name is Tammy Carter. We're developing our neighborhood association. It will be all of Hiawatha Hills and Teresa Terrace. That is the majority of the people that are surrounding your property. And then Ruston Trail Estates has their own homeowners association. They need to do the same thing. So our group, actually, the residents sent in questions to share with you, and it doesn't sound like enough time has been planned for this meeting to really solicit our feedback. I think it was more a presentation of your vision, which makes sense. But there are a lot of concerns that you need to address. And some of the most important ones, or I'll just try and grab some because there are a lot of concerns. It says in your meeting invitation, it stated 10 of the 24 acres will be set aside as natural open space. In fact, the only land not being developed is unbuildable due to washes. Okay, so that's a little disingenuous and it gives us concern when it's presented, look at all this open space we're offering. So that's disingenuous and we need to have less spin and more honesty. What size would the development need to be to not have emergency access on Jacinto and Tippecanoe? We're concerned about the grading that might be proposed in the project.
So I'm going to stop you there for just a minute because I want to point out that, and actually, if you guys will give us those, if you guys give us those questions, so we have 1 hour and 10 minutes. We only took a half an hour of the 2 hours to get feedback. So most of this meeting is about getting the feedback and answering questions. If we don't get to some of those, we can have a conversation about those, and if you'll get those to
And it
us, we'll
seems
go
like
into
there's a
meetings.
lot more people even than we have in our association.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions beyond this list.
Yeah, sure.
Are we able to have another meeting? Because I feel like everyone should be able to hear the answers to
Yeah.
all of these questions.
Yeah, we'll figure that out towards the end,
Okay.
absolutely. And again, if there's some of you who live directly adjacent, you now have our contact information, you know what the vision is, you know what the proposal is, and there's organized neighborhood associations. This is the start of a process. So we don't have to turn in an application until we've worked with those of you who want to work with us. And that's what
Is there
part of what
anything
this
currently
meeting.
scheduled for that application going at this time?
No.
Okay.
No, not at the moment. So I do want to point out just on the grading, and Andy mentioned this. So this is the Painted Hills Wash. This area has already been graded. So as you look at the plan, the area that we're talking, this is the area that's already been graded. So it's really the area down in here that is the additional area for grading. I'm not offering a value judgment as to whether that's good or bad, but a factual, which is what I've been trying. And the 10 acres that's being preserved as open space is, I didn't mean to spin that, it's just factual. Of the 24 acres, 10 of it is going to be open space. Yes, it's the washes. Did you have a couple more you want to get through?
Well, what the size of the development in relation to?
Hang on,
it was her question.
Well, we're
Okay.
all
Oh,
part of the
sorry.
same association.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep some order because I know there's some frustration. Sorry.
Well,
So it was a question she already asked.
Okay.
the two of
what
us, we're organized.
Okay.
What does the size of the development have to be in order to not have emergency access on Tippecanoe? and
So
Jacinto?
I don't know the answer to that. The question is, what is the size of the development have to be to not require emergency access? I don't know that. I don't know the number. It has to do with the number of residents, and I'm not the city planner who can answer that.
I
but we
actually
can give
asked
you-
the city, our representative at the city planner,
Yeah.
and he did not have an answer, and he said to ask you guys.
I'm sure we can find that.
We will get you an
That'd be great.
answer, I just don't have it in my head. There is a number of residential units at the point in time that you need a secondary emergency access, I just don't have it memorized. And you have to get to the right person at the city, which I will do. Okay.
Tammy, you had another one.
Another-
Grading.
She addressed the grading, she doesn't have numbers,
Okay.
so I'll be back to that. And then specifically, and my neighbor will have some additional information. But we wonder about any other considerations that were taken into account, an age-restricted 55 rental community like Ghost Ranch on Miracle Mile or Arroyo Gardens in Green Valley, or if an age-restricted owner-resident lower density would be considered. So we don't understand why we went from 0 to 150
Right.
with nothing in between.
Andy, do you want to talk about that age
The
restriction?
question is, why are we talking intergenerational versus
Yeah, age restricted.
That's what I see as really making a difference in people's lives, is having a variety of demographic, being able to communicate and work with the seniors that are living, that need help in the assisted living center.
Do you have a
So I
similar
don't-
project that's worked like that already?
I could probably gather some information nationally. I go to these national.
But you do not.
We would like to see some proof of concept for some natural areas, because a lot of us bought our homes specifically because they were bordered by deserts or were a cul-de-sac. There's always a higher value for a cul-de-sac, a dead-end street. It's Tucson Mountain Corridor. We looked at all those things. We're not foolish when we make a property decision. And so the fact that there would be spot zoning to drop this concept in the middle of what clearly is larger individual home and homeowner vision for our families, that needs to be looked at. And so I don't see any proof of concept, and I did try to find things that would address proof of concept, and I don't see that. I look at every square foot of buildable land. It's let's maximize this, let's get the best potential out of this size-wise. I don't see that as people simply because you're saying on the one hand it's for employees, and then you're saying it's really high-end rent. Well, typically all your employees aren't going to be able to do that unless you're subsidizing their housing. Are you subsidizing their housing? I don't know.
$1,000 for
But you
subsidized.
can't, you're talking about, oh, it's going to benefit all these
Caregiver.
people, but that flies in the face of what you're talking about and the values. So I just feel like I'm getting the spin, not the actual.
I understand.
And I love your concept for the assisted care home. Let's get that clear. You've done some beautiful things in Sierra Vista. You've done a beautiful thing on La Cholla in that area. And you've got some other places coming up. I am not as impressed by anything outside of those.
I understand your question. I can look for. I will gather information on proof of concept because I can probably find some of that and provide it.
In a natural setting, not an inner city or urban, because this is not urban.
Understood.
It'd be nice if we could have
So,
an age demographic
so we're
percentage
gonna
breakdown
go-
projected.
Okay, so we're going to go here, you, right? Did I do that right? And then over to you. Okay, go ahead.
Hi folks, my name is Brett Walgmuth. I'm up here and just a
Hi,
couple
Brett.
questions that we're gonna. I know some of you have already touched upon this, and that is, I think one of the things that we're really concerned about is the traffic, especially the people that live on Jacinto as well as Tippecanoe. Look, and you may know this answer, you may not, I don't know, but if it's going to be used for emergency access only, about, on your other properties, how often are those ambulances, fire trucks arriving at these facilities that have an older population?
I have a good answer.
Okay.
So the reason this is emergency access is because of the washes. Okay, so if there's a natural disaster and a flood, and we can't get across the wash to the south portion of the site, or we can't get up Cerrada de Beto because of something on the Silver Bell, that's what it's there for that short time. But as far as ambulances and fire trucks and everything, I am very sure that they're all coming up Cerrada de Beto. That's the street.
But
Can that be put in the zoning?
I'm just saying, I understand that. What I'm just saying is that you don't make that call to say the fire truck, you can only go this way, ambulances, you can only go. And I understand that.
But I am able to say to the fire department, no sirens on Cerrada de Beto. I do that in the neighborhoods where I'm at now. They have no siren rule when they're coming up the hill. I can do that. I also can tell the fire trucks where on the property I'd like them to arrive when they're helping a resident in the assisted living, I assume I could do something similar for the rental housing as well, to make that. So if you're living down on the south end and you're calling the fire department, I assume I could ask them to document with the fire department that their primary means of ingress and egress will be to come from Cerrada de Beto, not up to me to do it.
Well, I understand that. I'm just asking, like, how often does that happen? Because I think for all the people that live on that street, I understand that that position's only supposed to be for the wash. If something happens on Silver Bell, I get it. That's great. But if I'm in an ambulance, I'm sure they're not saying, well, I can only go up this way, but I'm already on the west side and this is emergency access. I can access that and I'm going to go there. I mean, I can't imagine the lawsuits that would happen if the fire department said, well, we're only allowed to enter over here, or we were told to only come through this property and someone needs assistance on the southwest corner of here and they don't go through the emergency access.
I understand your question.
Right.
I'm sure I can at least get you an answer, not just from me, but from fire, the ambulance, and whoever's doing that as to what their protocol would be when they would use the gate and when they would not.
Right, and that would be the lead-up question. What I'm looking for is the number of visits to your other properties that you may have due to fire and ambulance.
Regardless of road. How about
That's it.
Regardless of road.
Because that will serve as a basis to how much we would accept to even come into this area.
So Brett, you're asking for a stat.
Right,
Yeah, we want stats.
right, and we will work on getting one. There's also a little bit, and it's part of the discussion that we had earlier, there's a little bit of apples to oranges, right? All of the properties that Andy has done so far are the assisted living, which is this vision right here.
Okay.
So those numbers are going to be related to that. That's entirely off of Cerrada de Beto.
That's what we started
That's
with.
not,
Yeah.
right, and we can get you
Sure.
those numbers. The question of the numbers over here, I think maybe we can get some from apples
Sure.
to apples.
I just had one more.
Go ahead.
The other question is, how many people do you expect to be in these 150 units? So not just 150 units, got that number, but the total number of people, estimated.
I have a breakdown on the plan, I don't have it right in front of me here. No, I can't tell you. 263. So there are 3-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, and 1. Sure. So I think we could assume 1 person in the 1-bedroom unit.
Really?
2 or 3 people in the 2-bedroom. And
Okay, yeah, I mean, we're trying to get an idea for the amount of people that are going to be in the area.
Like I said, I don't have the answer right off the top of my head,
Right.
but it's an easy calculation.
Right, are animals going to be allowed on these properties, these rental homes?
Yep.
Yeah, barking dogs.
Hang on, I gotta get my order back. I had one over here, and then you, and then Christine, and then in the yellow. I'm doing 4, so now I'm gonna need help, and I saw your hand too. If I do 5, I need help with this. Go ahead.
I'm Mike Kent, President of Homeowners Association at Russell Trail. And what about the street coming in? You're not planning on putting a bus stop at the top there?
No.
There's not gonna be any bus because the school tried once.
Okay. You're talking about Suntran bus stop?
Yeah.
Yeah. The answer is no. We're not, Suntran isn't requiring it. We're not Suntran.
Bellows more than that.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
We're not requesting, and we're not planning to put in a bus stop.
The school tried to sneak one in there,
Okay.
and it was
Not a good idea.
like gonna be 35 buses a day coming up that road.
Okay. All right. That was 1. 2.
Yeah. Hey, my name's Joe. So I think this concept is great. I spent most of my life living in the middle of the city. I loved it down there when I was younger. And now I think just like everybody here, we moved out here to get into nature, to get into fresh air, to get a little more space, to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and of dense living. And I'm seeing that like all of a sudden getting pulled away. Why not take something like this and build it in the city on one of those million empty lots, get some infill, right? And it's perfect in the city. There's so many spots to build something like this. It's a great idea. You could build it closer to the U of A, closer to Pima, which you were talking about putting students. We don't need more students out here having parties. We don't need all of us out here. The beauty of living out here is the nature and the fresh air and the quiet. That's why we're all out here. And putting something like this is exactly what we moved to get away from. And so why not do something like that? You know? I don't know. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for your feedback. Hang on. I'll give you Christine. Yeah.
So I actually just want to go back to the road access question. I have two slightly related questions. One was, will they be used for construction during construction? Will we have construction vehicles on the city road?
Good question. I'm sure I can say no.
Okay. And then related to that is, and I don't know if you have any idea how this mapping apps work. But if somebody puts in an address, would they get directed data on Jacinto or typically?
It's a good question, and actually we can control both of those, okay? So no construction traffic and a specific area for construction traffic is again something that we traditionally can agree to with neighborhood associations as part of the process and can agree to as part of the rezoning. So again, that double enforcement on issues like that as we work this through. The mapping, we can't, I'm not as smart as my 16-year-old son, who seems to know more about the electronic world than I do. You guys look a little bit younger, too, than I am, so you may also know more. But my understanding is when we put that on a map as an emergency access only, it does not then show up on the mapping routing. It's the major roadways, and Silverbell is still going to be our closest major roadway, and the direct access from Cerrada de Beto. The other thing is, and we can talk to the city about this, how we name this will also be helpful, because at some level it's an extension of Cerrada de Beto, right? When you put it in there, it's going to show as connecting to Silverbell, and that's going to be the most direct route. So I won't stand here and say we control every app that's out there, but I think that we can do things and we can work with both the city and road naming and all of that to try and minimize, if not eliminate that. Okay, I saw hands go up, but if I remember correctly, I know you were you in the yellow. Were you next? Ma'am in the yellow shirt in the back?
I'm just curious, are there other properties that you take in, the large homes with spacious acres around them that house and provided services for the spacious and that setting? It seems like you could do a similar concept without population. Is there a reason you're actually
I believe that that's an option, but I think that this use, my vision is this is a better use. I understand how you all feel, but I feel like the tie-in of having some intergeneration is more important than just having more. There has to be a balance. It's still unwritten. So that's kind of what's in my head, having the tie-in between the two, and I understand your statement. Why not do it in town? So, expect it, get it, but I've got my 24 acres and I've got the existing living right here. So, but it is what it is. There was a question, did you mind?
Wait, hang on. I had number 5 over here, so I don't want to skip, and then we'll do another round of hands. Yeah, go ahead.
Just kind of a two-sided question. Who is responsible for Cerrada de Beto? Who's responsible for it?
Sure, it's a city of Tucson right away. It's a public access.
No, it's not. Okay, wait.
Is it for updates?
So right now, it's just a mess
sure
with all the
emails
potholes and everything.
Pass on the instructions.
We're from Western Trails, so when you come in on Silverbell, you come in on Cerrada de Beto, you've got the assisted living, we're white behind the assisted living. So if anybody knows anything about what's going on, we do. So my question is, you just told whoever asked the question, how are the construction companies going to get in there to build? And they're not going down Tippy Canoe or whatever, and they're not going down the other one, whatever it's called. They're going down that one. So that's more traffic coming and going and dirt flying and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So there's no answers to that one either. So the noise, whether it be once everything's all done, all of it's coming down that road, correct?
Yes, it's all coming down Cerrada de Beto. I'm interested in hearing, not necessarily right now, but at some point about the difference of opinion in the right-of-way, because that's Cerrada de Beto is City of Tucson right-of-way, but we can talk about that afterwards. The question of noise, both during construction, that is also something that we can work out routes to get through. If in fact the construction trucks do damage City of Tucson roadways, developers are required to go in and fix that. If it's a current degrading issue, then it's the ongoing maintenance that is subject to the City of Tucson's budgets. But to the extent that there is increased traffic, it can be, I think we can do this as part of the traffic analysis, but if the construction trucks cause additional damage, then the developer who does the construction has to repair that. And yes, there's noise during construction. I mean, we can't, but we can also, and that's, I mean, as you probably know, it's happening now with the construction that's going on at Via Elegante. There are things we can do to mitigate that, and again, that's part of the discussion no matter what happens on the property. I think I answered, probably not to your satisfaction, but answered at least a couple of those questions. If there, throw up hands again, and I'm gonna do 5. You've had your hand up. Thank you. You have had your hand up on the stool. 5, and I will get you guys in the next round. I think so. Were you 1? I don't know.
Yes. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, see, it takes the whole community to keep me on task. Go ahead.
What is planned for street lighting? Because obviously I see a pool there, so people are going to be walking back and forth, and who knows what time back and forth from the pool. So what is planned for street lighting?
The question is what's planned for street lighting.
We value dark skies out here.
And the dark skies ordinance is across this entire valley, and it will be complied with. The question of what it is that we're actually going to be proposing to be in compliance with dark skies, I can honestly tell you right now, we are at the very beginning. We don't even have the policies in place to do this. We don't know. I don't know if this is an area where we can do no street lighting. Sometimes it's a safety issue, but I know some of you all and some of the other places in the city and where I live, we don't have street lighting at all. So there's that opportunity. I would imagine up near the community spaces there may be some lighting, but again, outdoor lighting code applies. It's the city-county outdoor lighting code, and it applies throughout this whole region. So it's all shielded, it's all the low sodium. I can't remember what the spectrum is. There's probably an astronomer in here between the yellow and blue, but it's the one that's better for astronomers. So all of that, the lumens, all of that, every development has to comply with. So as we get moving a little bit further on the project, we'll be able to answer that a little bit better. Go ahead.
What is planned for starting construction and finishing construction?
The timeline between the 2 points.
So the question is what's planned for starting construction and what's planned for ending construction, the timeline. So from an entitlement standpoint, we have about 6 months of getting through that process for the plan amendment. If that's successful, we have another 6 to 9 months for the rezoning process, and at that point in time, we can start the development package, which takes, and this is all the behind-the-scenes stuff, which takes another 4 to 6 months. The end of the development package process would result in a grading permit. So we're a good 1.5 to 2 years away from anything that would be started construction. But I would also suggest that based on the meeting we're having right now, we're going to have some more discussions before we even start that timeline. So that gives you a sense of the timing, but I am not going to stand here today and say we are starting construction in 18 months.
Thank you for acknowledging more meetings. It sounds like you really are interested in getting that feedback. So
Yes.
we do appreciate that.
Yes, we are. Okay, I don't know where 2, 3, 4, and 5 are. You were 2. Okay. Go ahead. Were you 1? Sorry.
No. Okay. So, in talking about, I have a comment and then a question.
Sure.
The word synergy is very popular. It's a nice buzzword. But it's clear from your description that finances are what going to determine the people that move into these houses. And as somebody noted before, it's going to be people that could pay $1,000 to $1,500 a month. So there's nothing that encourages people that want to live near their loved ones or they can't afford leases. So it would just be like any other rental area. And some of us have experience with rentals and rental areas, and it's usually not a good experience. The other thing I wanted to comment on or ask you about is Silverbell's coming through here. You've got at least 3 major washes coming through there. Are you going to build bridges there? Because otherwise your emergency vehicles can't get to your assisted living.
Sure. The answer is Cerrada de Beto goes all the way out to Silverbell right now. No bridge is needed over any or if it is there, it's there. So we don't need a bridge to get access. So this wash is remaining completely open. This wash is, and those are the 2 big ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it's flooded.
Right, but I thought you were asking about bridging over these washes for this development.
Bridging over them on Silverbell so that you have access for emergency vehicles for the assisted living.
I don't understand the question.
So I'm not sure I understand the question either, because the Cerrada de Beto has direct access onto Silverbell. To the extent that there's deficiencies, no, we're not fixing those. That would be a city or an RTA project.
So they haven't done anything because there's no development down there. There's no major development. They haven't done any bridges across Silverbell. Okay. The wash is across Silverbell. If you've ever driven down there during a monsoon. Yeah, exactly. And
North of
usually
Perret,
they're
that's
flooded.
true.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
North of Perret, that's true, not south.
Yeah.
And I think our emergency providers are going to end up coming from the south, but we'll verify that. So yes, that's an existing condition. We're not fixing that condition.
That's out of scope.
Yes, that's out of the scope.
And so
of
the
the
same with
project.
the existing roads that are like in poor
You're
condition?
next, right?
Yeah.
Go.
Okay. Well, there'll be 2 parts. So the existing roads, Canoe and Jacinto, that are by no means conditioned for emergency vehicles currently, those are not going to be fixed.
So which ones?
Tippecanoe and Jacinto?
Those are the ones
The
down
proposed
to the
emergency
south
access,
that-
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They're pretty rough right now.
They're very rough. Have you guys been out there? Okay. And they're not going to be fixed.
Well, are they going to be fixed? That's the question.
Every
Well,
time the gas
okay.
company comes through, they create holes that never get fixed.
So, you want to address that? I mean,
And we don't want sidewalks.
Yeah.
So here's the fun part about a development proposal. The developer, when we do our traffic impact analysis, we determine where the roadways are that we're going to be accessing, and those are the ones that are analyzed for improvements.
Okay.
Okay? So when we use that, when we say that's going to be emergency evacuation access, whatever that's going to be, it doesn't get analyzed. If I were to stand here tonight at this neighborhood meeting and have told you that we have 3 primary access points, here, there, and there, I mean, there's no way
Is there a way to make that get analyzed?
I think that it's a city, my understanding is still a city roadway. Am I correct? It's a public roadway. So it goes in the same maintenance plan as all the other roadways in the city. And I'm gonna take off my developer hat for a minute because I work with the city on things like prioritizing money for roadways. And there's actually, you all may not like this, but there's a bond package that's coming up in the next election, and it's to pay for certain roadways. There's not enough money in the general fund in the city of Tucson to pay for roads. We're all suffering from that, all of us who live in the city and in the county. And so that's not a developer answer, that's kind of a bigger picture.
So just for perspective, I had a flat tire and I didn't realize it until I got out on Ironwood Hill because of the conditions of our roads. So I just want to put that out there. But my main question, what I'm really concerned about, as Tammy mentioned, we feel like we have to develop a neighborhood association in order to even be on a level playing field. And it feels like existing Hiawatha Hills residents, there are these certain things that you'll enter into agreements with people that none of us as a group can do right now. So it's going to take time for us to get that together.
We're not rushing.
Okay. And it just feels like we might be at a disadvantage if our neighborhood group takes time to go through before you can do things.
So let me explain a couple of things, because this is really important. I've been doing this now for 23 years, which I know is surprising because I look like I'm 20. But there are a lot of projects that I've worked on that have actually empowered adjacent groups to kind of get together and establish neighborhood associations, because you're right, it's a better bargaining, and we can enter into agreements with legally established entities, which is a lot better. And it gives us a point of contact too when you have a list of questions and we want to get answers to them. We can also work with individuals. So that's not to say that you have to organize yourselves. What we're doing today, like I said, is the first neighborhood meeting. We're taking down a lot of this information. I'm going to go home and have a very stiff drink. And we're going to digest all of this and be back in touch. It's a lot easier for us to be back in touch through leaders of adjacent neighborhood associations to get the information out there, and it's a great resource. It's why the city established it. So we will, and my cards are here, Robin's cards are here. If you hear rumors that we're getting ahead of you, pick up the phone and call us. It's the reason our phone numbers were on the bottom of that paper, the notice that we sent out. I know a lot of you called the ward office and called city staff. They let us know. Please feel free to call us. I mean, even if you want to call and yell at me, call and yell at me, but we want to be working directly with you as this
proceeds. Do you know that as
proceeds.
far as an association, that may have been the original impetus to get together and start talking, but we really like what we've discovered here, so that is moving forward.
Yeah,
so
we were chatting about that. There's, it's kind of nice to get to know your neighbors,
Very cool.
even if we're the common enemy. I see your hand. I think I had.
I was going to add a silver lining to your comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Well,
I'm all for a silver lining.
Yeah, so when you call her, also offer to buy her a stiff drink. No, the silver lining though is that with the emergency roads, because they're not going to have to do a traffic study, that almost guarantees that they're only going to be emergency access. Silver lining.
Silver lining.
That was number 5.
Right. So silver lining for some of you, not for all of you. Go ahead. No, thank you.
I'm number 5. Who was 4?
Someone in the middle on a stool.
Man, I screwed up. Oh,
there she is.
you are. Thank you.
We'd rather use homeowners Western Rail area, and it's been our understanding all along. I want to talk about the emergency ordinance rather than the matter. It's our understanding that it's not a city-owned street.
Only up to the line.
Rustin Hills has to pay for all those maintenance, and I have our financials here. Hills, that'll pay for about one pothole.
Yeah.
So we need to,
We'll talk.
you guys gotta figure out that traffic.
Because we may actually be in agreement as to where it stops and starts public right of way. We may just be not talking to each other very effectively, and that's probably my fault. So we can do that kind of on the side. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. 5.
Yes, twofold. One is the rental's going to be monthly, yearly. How's that lease going to work?
I would assume they're long-term leases.
Is there going to be an office there for everybody to converge on? All right, and then the other part is you're going to have a maintenance company taking care of every little thing on the property?
Yes.
And because I know I've seen a lot of rental areas out there that really, start falling down, and they leave cars in the driveway, and
Yeah, there's an opportunity here with this being a rental home project versus a single family project to make sure that all of that is done, to protect make sure that all maintenance is done regularly and everything else versus when you have the individual homeowners.
what their contract is going to be when they sign it.
What's that?
What's gonna be on their contract when they sign it?
Well, I don't
That-
have.
I know, you gotta deal with
Clearly
it,
there
but I
was
just
something
want
in
it
the
out
lease.
there
Yeah.
that that's gotta be dealt with.
And from an adjacent property owner too, when a subdivision is created, you have to deal with the end purchaser, right, of each of the individual lots. When you have a rental like this, and that's true at most of these communities, the adjacent property owners and adjacent associations will have a single point of contact, which is the owner and the landlord, to deal with anything that goes on, and an enforcement provision in the lease. So it's a little bit of a different enforcement mechanism than, and I'm trying not to make a judgment, but it's easier for the adjacent owners that are outside of the project to have a little bit more control over that enforcement. Obviously, it's as good as the landowner owner, but he's standing right here and has a long-term commitment to the project. All right, we're gonna do 5 more, and I know, okay, hang on, let me do the 5, and then you're gonna help me. 1, 2, 3, Superman hat, you're 4. Is that Superman?
Yep.
Okay, 4. I'm gonna do new people first. 5. Okay, who's 1? Okay, go ahead.
It's a comment. I back in Canfield watch all the time. Ever since all this development started, the mules there are gone, there was the bobcats back there. He's been nice enough to put a fence up, a trash pit, but it doesn't work. And I've been picking up a lot of trash, so once the building starts, I don't know if it's gonna be a wall or what. But here's my question, my main question, because I'm heartbroken about what's happening in Annapolis. We have a lot of equestrians back there and things like this, so the climate of it has really changed. I can't sit outside and have breakfast anymore.
Oh, you found it. We were looking for that. Thank
So
you.
on and so on. So here's my question.
Yes,
Here's
sorry.
my question. I'm understanding, and I don't know about the information, if it's correct or not, that if 20% of us say no, and we're in that 150-foot range, which I am, can we just not do all this and let us all say no? Is that possible to not keep doing this?
So I think what you're talking about is the protest calculation that actually applies to the rezoning. It doesn't apply to the plan amendment. And what it does is it gives a supermajority vote of the council, not a definitive no. Now, having said all of that, and I can talk to you a little bit more, any of you, about how that process works. Part of what, again, the purpose of this meeting was for Andy to talk about his vision. And he does own the property. It's not publicly owned, it's privately owned. There's other developments that he can do both as of right, and we can kind of modify this. We would like this to be the first meeting to have that discussion. If there's a group of you who absolutely don't want to engage in that and just want to show up at the hearings and say no to everything, that is absolutely within your purview, and it's part of the reason that I laid out the process. So if in fact we proceed, the plan amendment process does not have a supermajority requirement where you don't, 20% of the properties within 150 feet, which is the protest calculation, doesn't apply to the plan amendment. The 150-foot, 20% of property owners by area and by number of lots does apply during the rezoning. And again, what that does is it changes the requirement to approve from a simple majority of the council, which is a 7-member council, so 4, and it changes it to require 5. So there is some power in the protest, but it's not like if 20% of a certain area say no, that it kills it. We're still going through the process. Again, we want to engage and have a discussion.
And
So
the current zoning is SR.
Correct.
Which means 3.3 residents per household.
Yes.
So this 24 acres can support a maximum of 7 households.
Yes.
And even if you cluster them because you're staying out of the wash, it still can support 7 households.
Yes.
Under the current zoning.
Yes.
And let's just make sure that's clear. It's not 1.2 acres per
No.
household.
It's 3.3 acres. Yes, and that's the difference between the zoning and the plan amendment, yes. And I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. That wasn't my intention, not how to escape. Okay, who was 2? Thank you. Okay. I forgot.
I'm sorry, everybody else is. Currently, your construction workers are horrific. They leave their beer cans, soda pop cans.
They should not be drinking
trash.
Yes.
All down Cerrada de Beto. They park their trucks outside your gate in the early morning. I'm a very early riser and I see them every morning. And they gather at that gate. You can't even drive in our homeowners association because of their big trucks. And one of them parked their truck up on the property. And several days, that same truck was up on a black truck, pickup truck. But it's the big trucks. Oh, it's all that stuff. We have that now. My God, what is it going to be when you're building 150 units? And all the traffic on Cerrada de Beto, every bit of it. The noise that we currently get from the college students that live in the existing apartments over on Ironwood Hills, it's horrible. And the gunshots and the fireworks. And that's why I think we're asking, can we have some kind of a idea if we're going to rent it? If you're going to rent to college kids again, we're going to be surrounded with college kids. And I don't know how your poor assisted living people are going to like gunshots going off in the units. But that's the reality of renting to college kids. So everything else that everybody said, I bought that property because it's quiet. I don't have any lights up there. I can see every star. I see every sunrise and every hummingbird on all the trees. And, the coyotes, the mountain lions, they're all, they're going to be gone. Your construction will drive them further away than what they already are.
Thank you for your
And my property is worth a lot to me, and I feel like your vision is ruining my vision
And the Tucson Mountain Corridor's vision.
Yeah.
All right, who's 3? 3, yes, thank you.
My name's John. I live in Silver Spur, which is just to the north of. I'm outside of Zoom. I've lived there for 28 years. For all of that 28 years and more, I've worked as a civil engineer, so I've dealt with a lot of development type work, both in the public and the private sector. So I'm very familiar with the process. I think that process has made me sensitive to landowners being able to use their property for uses that are compatible with surrounding development, which is why over the years I've never opposed anything that's happened in my neighborhood. And I don't mean any disrespect to, I'm sorry, I forgot one. I don't mean any disrespect to you, but I think it goes without saying that 150 homes on this parcel is completely inconsistent with the 1 and 2 acre lots.
Here, here.
Could be a lot of concrete trucks.
Because of my sensitivity to this, I feel like you support this sort of use, this sort of vision. By all means, you should support what the owner wants to do with the property. On the other hand, the zoning process, and I'm less familiar with the plan amendment process, but the zoning process, there's no obligation on the city's part to enact this rezone. The rezone has been requested. I forget the term.
It's discretionary.
It's discretionary as opposed to a subdivision plat in existing zoning, which is administrative. I want to echo Joe's comment that, and again, I mean no disrespect, but the type of use you're proposing would be much better suited in many other places. And for that, almost for that reason alone, I find the proposal disingenuous. It's just way too many units. And I want to make sure it goes without saying, my specialty in my field is floodplain and drainage analysis. And I know for an absolute fact but that Painted Hills Wash can't be delivered, it's ERZ. So floodplain to floodplain, you can develop that. I don't know so much about the smaller wash, but I suppose it's something similar.
They're not ERZ, but you are
The
correct.
smaller, yeah, but the one to the north, Painted Hills is ERZ.
Yep.
So floodplain edge to floodplain edge, it can't be developed. I sit on the city's Stormwater Advisory Committee, so I'm very familiar with the appeal process. So I know you're saying it's open space, but you know, and I know that it's really not developable.
Yeah.
This is a very long and onerous process. If for those of you who don't support this, it's a long process. You'll have to stay in it for the long haul. I took the liberty of contacting some colleagues that deal with this sort of thing more frequently than I do for a suggestion for legal counsel in case you want to retain that.
Yeah.
And the first recommendation I got was you. So, just so you all know what we're up against.
Well, and
Carrie, take it alone.
Take it with love. We went to law school together. And I do want to, I don't want this to come off as disingenuous. I know that this proposal, as it's presented, is clearly falling flat. We have work to do. We want to work with those of you who are interested in working with us. And that's a lot of what, so when I'm recommended as a zoning attorney, I think it's not because I represent developers and do cram downs. It's called community development for a reason. We're happy to work with if there's, a legal representative for sure.
Who do you recommend when we get to?
That I'm not going to do because that's a conflict.
Who do you want to go against?
True compliment again. Okay, so we're.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even remember what number I was on.
Okay.
I'm on order 4. Go ahead.
Yeah, but when you say that you want to work with us, then please consider very much the housing that is on the south side and on the west side is way too close. I live right at the corner southwest for 46 years and 6 months now. I have lived there and looked into a wonderful leftover part of the Sonoran Desert. And I'm losing this, and you place a house site right in front of my property. That when I go out, look out of my windows, be in my backyard, I see this stupid house wall. That isn't a sun. But you don't consider us at all, or do you? Then those houses right there on the property lines have to go. We need
Well, and this meeting is a pre-requirement to put through a proposal, so this is a required event for the process.
Yes.
Okay.
It's also, no, but it's also, it is a required process, but I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a really long time, right? One of the options is to just reach out to the neighborhood associations, right? Start the process, start the dialogue before we even have this neighborhood meeting. If we did that, I wouldn't have been able to reach out to you all, right? Because you're not an organized neighborhood association. So at some point, it does make sense for us to go ahead and conduct this meeting because it brings everybody together. So we are not being disingenuous. That was a double negative in my law professor. Kill me for that. But we are really being genuine when we tell you that yes, it's the required part of the process. And if the process were just to be continued and be a cram down, which I don't even think would work because, as you pointed out, it's a discretionary process at the end of the day anyways, then we would just be moving straight forward. What we're committing to do right here is for those of you who do live directly adjacent and who are part of an organized association and want to continue a dialogue with us, we would like to engage in that dialogue. Now, after this meeting, you have to self-identify because I don't know your name. I could describe you to somebody, and you and a few others who have been vocal. But I need you to help me figure out who you are on that sign-in list and what your desire is to engage. Or take my card and Robin's and get back to us and just help us to identify. Don't tell me what number and the number of 5 that you were, because I clearly don't know that. But we are, this is the beginning of, you're right, it's the required process, but I've been burned before where I think I'm reaching out to the folks, and then we have the required meeting, and we think we've negotiated, and it's, well, what about me? So this is actually the better way to start the engagement. Do I even have number? Oh, Superman, I'm sorry.
My name's Ryan. I live off of Silversburg. Cindy and John are my neighbors. And I live literally right around the corner from what's an assisted living community. It's about 10 bedrooms, I believe. We moved in and my wife got pregnant. We had a newborn. And right around that time was when we were just acclimating into the neighborhood. It's just a common for all of you guys to consider. That was a 10-bedroom facility about. Every week, at least once a week, on a quiet week, there was an ambulance. So it turns out people that live in assisted living facilities aren't very healthy. One time we counted 3 ambulances a day. On one day, my kid was trying to sleep. Every time he woke up. So consider that when you guys think about this. Because that's just the emergency vehicles, but that's not the maintenance vehicles. There's those too. So if you're building a utopia there, I hope there's a place for a hospital.
You number 5? I don't remember. Oh, the guy with the hat is number 5, and then we'll start with you on number 1, 2, and 3.
I have several points. One is, if we would like to review the property, can any of us go there? Do we need permission?
At this point, we're under construction, we're a construction zone. As far as the existing building, as far as the land, you have to cross that. But I'd be delighted to walk you across the land. My card's up there. I'd be happy to meet you out there and walk you across the land.
The other part, have you done an archaeological survey of the property?
I think that's the part.
That's part of the process as we continue. The archaeological is part of the rezoning, which is the next phase of the process.
Also on the southeast or southwest corner of the property is a major cactus forest. And from what I can see, you can probably bulldoze that all down, is that correct?
So as part of the rezoning process and the development package process, there's what's called the native plant preservation requirement. So we have to catalog certain species and what's the word I'm looking for, size of different native plants, and then we have to either try and relocate, and there are issues with relocating saguaros that I'm abundantly aware of, or mitigate those. And so we'll be working with this is way down in the process. It's the rezoning identifies them, and then it's the development package process that actually talks about how to
Well, we
treat
have
them.
a resident population of wildlife. In fact, I had bobcats getting worse. I live on Teresa Lane, and we see bobcats regularly. We've actually seen mule deer in the area, as well as javelina and raccoons. And I'm certain that'll have a big impact on the wildlife.
I mean, I'm not here to tell you that development isn't going to change the behavior of wildlife. We all know it. We've all seen it, no matter how long you've been here and what you've seen happen. What the city and the Coalition for Snow and Desert Protection, and I know the Tucson Mountain Association has been really involved in mapping the major wildlife corridors and making sure those are preserved. They usually also overlap with the ERZ washes, because that's where the major wildlife corridors are. So we're aware of where those are. The Painted Hills Wash is the one that's impacted by our project and is the privately owned piece of it. So you're right, there are also things we can do as part of the development, and this can be done during the rezoning part of the process, to do things that are more sensitive to wildlife movement. Some of it is density, but some of it is also just the treatment of the borders, the types of walls, the porosity. I will tell you that there is pretty constant conflict in most of the projects that I work on. The porosity is great for the wildlife, but not great for privacy. And so those two end up coming into conflict. But there are ways to resolve that. So I hope that, whatever. I don't think that helped at all, but it's important to understand. I'm not standing here telling you that it's not going to stop affecting. I see you. Hold on just a second. So we're going to go 1. Is there anybody who has not spoken or asked a question that wants to ask a question besides you? Okay, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Go ahead. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot number 1. Okay. We'll go 1A, 1B. You guys can figure out who goes first. Sorry.
You stated that your primary motivation is multi-generational living. Why is it that there needs to be 150 units granted there and the changing of the zoning to have my multi-generational living?
Well, 7 homes doesn't make them multi-generational.
Why is that?
It would be large homes, and there wouldn't be that many people there to get some of the buzzword synergy.
So the vision that Andy was articulating is one where no, it's not college students, but it's a vision where the assisted living is there, and there's a sharing of some of the resources. So it's going to tend to be marketed towards people who are heading towards assisted living, or a spouse is there, and there's a sharing of some of those hospitalities and services. That doesn't necessarily, because what the current zoning allows, and this I know this is what a lot of you want, and we hear you loud and clear, which is a subdivision with 7 single-family residences, right? That's going to, or 7 homes. That's a subdivision, and that's going to not necessarily have those extensive synergies that's part of the vision.
Even to go from 7 homes to 150 units seems disingenuous with time versus that's my point. And, I mean, I would even understand some growth, some development at some rate where you would move to the next one. You go to R2 and cram in 150 units, everybody else has to have 7 units every 3.3 acres. It is disingenuous.
The Tucson Mountains is a 20 by 7 mile mile area that is very sensitive to with biodiversity. We have this rich area with the plants, with the animals, and we're very proud of that. We have this zoning that's in place. We have residents that are very sensitive to what we live amongst. And when we see something like this, it's disheartening. We are very touched by the history that we have geologically. We're proud that we were once a volcano. We're proud of the rocks that we live amongst. We're proud of the Native Americans that were here. We're proud that we live amongst the animals. These washes are not just washes, but they're corridors. And these animals don't just stay within the washes. So when I see these squares on this map, it pains me because I think, good God, where are the animals going to go? And we have this zoning of 3.3 acres for a reason, because we are sensitive to the animals and where the animals are going to go, and not only the animals, but the plants. Because we have a cactus forest. In areas we have an ironwood patch of ironwood forest, you know, we have this greasewood forest. We have these patches that are very special in the Tucson Mountains. And it's because we were once a volcano. And it creates these very special areas. And you just take a drive and you say, oh, look what's here. Oh, look what's here. Oh, wow, we're in this area. Oh, look at the colors of the rocks here. Oh, look at the colors of the rock here. And so when I see these squares, it makes me very concerned because what's going to happen to the biodiversity? So, and that's the issue. And I didn't identify myself. My name is Denise Baldwin, and I'm a board member with Judith with Tucson Mountains Association.
Yeah.
And we advocate for the Tucson Mountains because once we lose it, it's gone forever.
And as homeowners, we take that responsibility seriously. That's why we moved here, and we continue to protect it in our own homes. We're careful what we do. And so I think that's what you're seeing with all these people here.
No, I hear you. I got it. Thank you.
First of all, I've been here for over 20 years. We bought the place where we located because of the diversity and the nature and the animals that we see day in and day out. I mean, we had the deer underneath our tree the other day. You know, bobcats go through. The javelina, you know, we respect that wildlife. And to see the amount of units that are going in, that's disheartening. That's what's really concerning. Not necessarily development, because development happens everywhere. But to have some sort of respect for the area and the neighborhoods around you, that's where I'm concerned. I don't feel like you really understand how important that is to each and every one of us here. I mean, I hope you're hearing us.
Oh, I'm definitely.
Because
Careful going west of Silver Bell.
that is, and I'm with the trust, the Ruston Trails Homeowners Association, I'm secretary.
The other land.
So, yes, there's only a few homes up in that area. But even just that one road, Cerrada de Beto, that's the only way in and out of our neighborhood. You know, people come down our driveway thinking it's an accident. So we had to put up signs saying private property. So with all this construction now, it's a concern because the roads are getting tore up. And with all of that going in, that would just destroy the area.
Yeah.
So
it might be full comfort, but if, the reason I can never remember the numbers is because I really am listening and concentrating, and then as soon as you're done with your comments and the questions, I can't remember who was next. And I think that Andy and Shannon are both very much engaged in listening. And somebody had a sec there.
Yeah, so this is maybe more of a comment, listening to everything and thinking about it while I'm standing here. But it sounds like everybody kind of agrees that the nature out here and the space is one of the things that really makes it amazing. And this development kind of flies in the face of everything that land is great for. Why not take that and find a way to develop it where you make it walking trails for the residents in this development that you already have, make it picnic areas, make it things that help the wildlife thrive. And ultimately, like, we all know that the bottom, like, you're trying to make money. But if you make this place that you already have higher end by really promoting it as a way to, like, you know, get your grandmother, grandfather out here and let them walk around in nature and walk the trails and, you know, hang out and have a picnic with other, you know, elderly people who are his friends, push that, charge higher prices, and then use that money to develop other areas. But the other thing I'm hearing, you guys are saying that this is going to be for support, you know, oh, you get somebody in there and then the family can move into these houses. But you're also saying these are going to be your leases. And having just had a grandmother who passed away recently and was going through homes and an aunt who's now there, like, this stuff happens fast. You know, they're usually not in a retirement facility for years and years. The ability to get somebody into one and upend your whole life, wait for a house to open, move in there, then they pass away, and then you move out again a year later. It's a lot to deal with somebody who's also going through going through the end of their life. And so I don't know if it sounds great, but the reality of it, I think, is going to be something that people aren't going to want to do. Because the last thing you want to do when your parent is passing away is move twice.
And I've never met anybody who moved close to the facility. I mean, I've had several family members now, and just my boss just went through this, and her mom just passed away in March. They choose the facility close to the house they already live in. I've never heard of anybody picking up and moving into an apartment because the assisted living is there. So that just seemed odd.
Okay, is there anybody else, we've got about a little less than 10 minutes. Let me just see if there's anybody else who has not asked a question or a comment and wants to.
Well, I've lived in my house for 4 years, which is right across the wash from all your construction.
To the north?
To the north, kept directly across the wash. When I moved in there was a turkey farm. And let me tell you,
Seriously?
yes.
This property was?
Yes, it was. This lady here might attest to that. Yeah. Do you remember hearing the gobbling turkeys up there? And then the mariachis with the family that had their parties. So there's always been noise there. When it became the psychiatric facility, we had girls running up and down the wash, and one of them getting actually murdered there. And when that construction happened, it was very tumultuous, very noisy, just building that facility originally. Then when it became a school, we had lots of noise as well. And the only thing good about the school was that people would go home in the evening and it would get quiet again, and then the summers were quiet. So the property has gone through many, many changes over the years. I don't like to see it as densely congested as what you've got here, because yes, it is going to be very noisy. And I was very upset when the construction started, not only for when the psychiatric facility went in, but now this new project, because I didn't get informed as to what was going on, and all of a sudden, in fact, for the psychiatric facility, it was Christmas, and they started bulldozing up there and, starting the construction of the facility. And I just wish, that I think you'd have a better rapport with the community if we'd even been notified that it was going to happen. But instead, we just started hearing all the noise and the construction.
You're talking about the construction of the Via Elegante?
Yes.
Okay.
It sounds like there's some issues there with construction doing renovation.
Yeah. Yeah. You haven't asked anything in this meeting?
Okay. I live in the neighborhood association across the way, which a few years ago was just an HOA. And it's a small one, but I knew that in order to get involved politically with issues in the community, we needed to be a neighborhood association. And so it's been brought up before, but I would emphasize again that if you're an HOA and not a neighborhood association, you need to start now organizing to become a neighborhood association, because there is that point of contact, and your concerns and issues are much more able to
be heard.
Pardon me?
Be heard?
Yes. And so for any of you, that if you have an HOA, or even if you don't, but there's a grouping, a natural grouping of homes, you should organize as a neighborhood association. And there can be several.
Is that way you would have been notified? Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
Yes, because I'm right across the street. And I was notified.
Oh, okay.
Our neighborhood association was notified.
That there was going to be a new project started?
Yes, this project.
Well, two different issues, right? One of them is a construction project on an existing zoned private piece of property, and there is no notification requirement. It's private property. As long as it's compliant with zoning and they get all of their permits, private property owner can go ahead and do. The public processes, the plan amendments, rezonings, variances, the other things that are just fall in the realm of discretionary, there are different notification processes, but for purposes of associations, it's the neighborhood associations in the city that get notified, not HOAs, which is a different beast. So registering as a neighborhood association would not have had you notified of the construction project, but it does help with the issues that we were talking about.
And Tammy is looking into that, and we've all already started working.
It's already begun. Yeah.
So if you're not currently, if you're a Hiawatha Hills resident,
Or Teresa Terrace.
or Teresa Terrace, and you are interested in becoming part of that group, and you're not currently aware of our existing methods of communication, we're working through email, Facebook, Nextdoor. Please come see us after the meeting. We'll be sure to get your contact information as that goes forward, because we're going to have to work together to develop that. So if we don't already have your contact information, please let us know.
I have another.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I served along with Judith on the design of Silver Bell Road, that committee. And I think all along from Grant to Ina, part of the design was to take into consideration all of the washes, all of the flow of water that was coming down. So I think that'll automatically be taken care of on Silver Bell Road whenever it finishes. But, so that part is good. But you have to organize. You have to.
Okay, so we're running out of time. So I'm going to take one more question, and then we'll talk to you guys afterwards, because I want to make some reminders, and we need to be out here by 8. Go ahead.
Okay, I just have a comment, and you may or may not agree with me, but personally, one of the things that I find disingenuous is talking about the cost. This is how much it's going to cost to live here, and then assuming that that is going to buy some group of people who are well behaved.
I totally agree.
Because you're within this income bracket and you can pay this much to live here, does not guarantee you crime-free residence. And then not only that, but there's just something that rubs me the wrong way with that whole idea, you know, that poor people we don't want them here near us in this little neighborhood. It's not for them. This is for our people who are within a certain income bracket and they can afford to be here. So we're going to give them all of these niceties. And, you know, that rubs me personally the wrong way. And I don't know. To me, that's disingenuous, and that doesn't make for a good neighbor for me.
Anybody who wants to chat afterwards, we just need to put the room back together again. We're supposed to be out of here. Please, if you did not get notice of the